Hey YouTube, what's going on? Welcome back to the BBZ Poker channel. Today we're going to talk about something very important to you. We're going to talk about making you money, and we're going to talk about doing that by buying action. So before we get started, I'm going to set the stage a little bit. Basically, what buying action means, to those of you that don't know, is like professional poker players sometimes don't want to retain all of the buy-in for a tournament that they're going to play. So for example, for myself, if I wanted to play a $100,000 tournament, I would probably want to sell some of it. So if I sold, let's say half of it, I would sell $50,000. I'd put up half the money. Other investors put up the other half. Now, why would they do that? Well, they would want to do that maybe because they expect to get a return. So maybe the investors assume that I have a win rate in this $100,000 tournament of 5%. So in this case, maybe I don't charge a markup at all, and I let them retain that win rate. Maybe I assume my win rate's 10% and I charge them a 5% markup, and in which case, if over the long term, if my win rate proves to be more than 5%, they make money. And if my win rate proves to be less than 5%, then they lose money. Okay. So that's, a little bit of a primer, very brief one, on what it means to buy and sell action, and maybe a little bit of why people might do it. So now we're going to get into how I use this to make money. I've been investing in poker players in various ways for 10 years, and I've made millions of dollars doing it. So I think I'm qualified to try to help you out. I also have some proprietary data that I'm going to share with you right now that most people don't have access to anything like this. So hopefully this, adds some information to the conversation and lets people make better decisions. So number one, don't assume people win for more than 31.5%. That's my first assumption. First rule is that I will never really assume that people win for more than 31.5%. So why? Where does that come from? Well, I manage a team of mid to high stakes players. I'm their head coach, and those players will occasionally play low stakes games. Maybe the action on sites is dry. Maybe they're winding down their session. Maybe they're starting their session, whatever. So when those mid to high stakes players who normally play up here, when we drop them down and they play low stakes games, what happens? So we would expect them to win for a lot. Like this is, these are going to be guys that have a big edge in this type of a game now. How much do they win for? 31.5%. Over what kind of a sample? Hundreds of thousands of games. Okay, so this is real data. This isn't like one guy's graph. So I have a really difficult time assuming that some player is winning for more in any kind of competitive high stakes game than these players are winning for in really low stakes games. So that makes it basically impossible to me to assume in an online tournament that people are winning for more than 31.5%. So what's that mean for what price I want to pay in terms of markup? I like to maintain a margin of safety of at least 5%. So that would mean that my ceiling investment price would be 26.5%. That would require some assumptions like this guy's killing these games and he's an absolute beast. I basically never make that type of an assumption. So for myself, I don't ever really pay more than 15 to 20% for online action, but at least you've got some information about how to do it and how to think about it. You need to understand that you're always going to be wrong when you're handicapping someone's win rate. So you do need a good spread between what you think someone's winning for and what markup essentially that you're paying to invest and get this opportunity. So I would say also, this brings me to number 3, beware of investing at high markups in live action. So obviously the data in live tournaments is much worse, at least as far as I understand it, but I have a really difficult time personally thinking that my players who are winning at a $100 average buy-in. They play mid to high stakes games. Winning at a $100 average buy-in for a very healthy clip. I'm not going to disclose that number. Those players are beating low to mid stakes games for 31.5%. And you're going to tell me that like those are really low stakes soft games where they have good edges. And you're going to tell me that somebody's winning for like 150% in some live tournament. I doubt it. I think it's probably impossible or like close to it under most conditions. So I have a difficult time assuming that people, I do think that, like there's an opportunity in some instances. And so maybe you could assume that someone has a win rate of as much as 50 to 60%, but assuming that people are winning for like hundreds of percent or something and investing on that basis seems very vulnerable to loss. So I personally don't do it. I'm not saying it's impossible to be successful doing that. I'm saying I don't do it. So yeah, so I would say just beware of paying like big multiples of that 31.5% number. A small premium for a soft live tournament, sure, I can understand that. A big premium, probably not. So that's rules number 1 through 3, which brings me to like, this isn't a rule, but this is just kind of point now, number 4, which is like, where do I like to invest? Like, how do I think about it? because I think that that's just, this can be very valuable to you guys. So the first thing is to kind of reverse engineer what's going on. Why is this person giving you the opportunity to invest in them and play, and take their action, right? So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for someone who values the liquidity that I'm providing, okay? So how do you figure out if someone values the liquidity that you're providing? Well, if you have a player who normally plays like, low to mid, kind of low end high stakes games, so maybe they play up to $300 tournaments, and a $1,000 main event comes along and they want to play it, but they don't want to put up the $1,000 because it's bigger than their normal schedule, and it means taking on a bunch of risk they normally wouldn't take on. So they want to sell action. That seems fine, seems reasonable, and they just want the opportunity to play the tournament. So they're willing to sell action, assuming a very low win rate on their part. So they're willing to sell you action at like 1 or 2% just so that they can play, because they don't have tons of people who will invest in this tournament for them. So essentially they're paying you, they're giving you their win rate in exchange for the liquidity that you provide for them to play this tournament. It's great. It's a good deal. You're making money as an investor, and they're getting to do something that they think is valuable. Maybe the competition is valuable. Maybe they're a streamer and they want the exposure for their stream to a high stakes game, particularly if they won that game. That would be huge for them. So, there are lots of different reasons why they might want to play. Maybe they just want to play the main event and they don't want to put up the $1,000. So you're getting compensated appropriately for the valuable liquidity that you're providing to them. Now, let me create a scenario that I don't like investing in, because that's my favorite. Okay, so the scenario that I don't like investing in is when you are quote unquote given the opportunity to invest in like a really well-branded, high-stakes player that everyone knows. And I'm not calling anybody out because I can tell that people might think that in the comments. I'm not calling anyone out. But a well-branded, high-stakes player who's selling action to a $5,000 tournament or something that like takes place every week. And maybe this player is charging, 20% or something like that. That is a scenario where I would pass. Why? Well, if you think about the way that a market works, this player is the provider of the opportunity, and the market is broad and wide. He can sell to anybody because he's got the notoriety to do so. So what is he trying to do? He's trying to maximize how much money he can take from the market, which comes directly this is zero sum, comes directly at your expense. And the probability that you're being provided with some really solid investment opportunity seems low. So at the same time, there are actually really solid investment opportunities in buying other people's action. You just have to make sure it's priced properly. So from my perspective, right, and this video is about making you guys money. From my perspective, why would I invest and get a sweat from someone at a loss to me when I can invest and get a sweat in someone at a profit to me? That has nothing to do with anything other than that. Black and white. I'm getting the same rush, if you want to call it that. I might as well do it in a way that's efficient for my bottom line. Okay? So, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this was a valuable video for you guys. I know it's very different to what I normally provide on the YouTube channel. So if you like this type of stuff, be sure to subscribe, leave some comments, let me know what you thought, and I'll do my best to keep coming up with ways to make you guys money. So thanks guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.